you'll understand Satan's attack and tenacity to destroy the family. When you understand God's purpose and priority of the family, you will then understand Satan's tactics and his attack on the family. And so, remember when God created heaven and earth, he created earth and he put a family on earth. Remember, he had Adam. Adam is not good for man to be alone. And so then he created Eve, brought Eve out of Adam. And then we had the first marriage between Adam and Eve. And he tells them to be fruitful and what? Multiply. He tells them to subdue and rule the earth. He tells them to be fruitful and multiply, reproduce, and he tells them to rule and subdue the earth. In other words, bring my order into the earth. So what was interesting about this is that in Genesis chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, all throughout Genesis, there is no church. So before there was a church, there was a family. Before God entrusted the church to be the mission to the world, he entrusted a family to be the mission to the world. Y'all following it yet? And so when you understand God's purpose and his priority of family, you understand, take those there. You also understand Satan's attack and his tenacity against the family. Before there was a church to represent God on earth, there was family that was supposed to represent God on earth. And we see the first family breakup when Adam and Eve ate the fruit, they kicked out of the garden, and there was a level of intimacy that had been broken. And so what we find then is that the church, the Big C church, and even when we look at the local church, if you notice, we call each other brothers and sisters, right? Because it's supposed to represent family. If you keep following me here, it'll get good to you. Because you also see this, that in order to become a part of a family, there's only three ways: marriage, birth, and adoption. Marriage, birth, and adoption, right? And so we see all of those also in the gospel. And so what we find is that he's our great groom, and we call him the bridegroom, which means when we get in relationship with Jesus, there is an intimate bond that should never be broken, and Jesus died to make that happen, right? And so we see one way to get into one way to get in a family is marriage. This is why when we get married here, we say until death do us part, because then we're in the most intimate relationship for all eternity. But on the earth, it's supposed to represent the bond between God and man. You don't believe me? Ephesians chapter 5, we find that he says, when he talks about marriage, Paul says, it's a great mystery. I'm actually talking about the gospel.
Yeah, it's good.
And so when we separate marriage from the gospel, we miss the manifold wisdom of God. Right? That's why there's been so much battle over marriage, because it's not about two people coming together that love each other. No, it's about God united humanity, male and female, to represent him and to be able to reproduce. And so the battle's over marriage because the marriage represents the gospel.
It's good.
See, the world trying to make it about sexuality. No, it's all about the gospel. And so one way to get into a family is through marriage. The other way is birth. John chapter 3. My boy Nicodemus came to Jesus late at night, and he was like, man, tell me about this thing that you're talking about. How am I supposed to, you said, how am I supposed to have new life? Jesus says you must be born again. Yeah. One way to get into a family is what? Marriage. Another way to get into a family is what? Birth. And so, just like I would have been, Jesus says you got to be born again. Nicodemus says, do I got to enter into my mother's womb again? I'm sure somewhere in these laws, I'm not supposed to. He says, so how am I supposed? And physiologically, that's impossible. And so, but Jesus says, no, I'm not talking about physical birth. I'm talking about spiritual birth where you have new life. And so this is why we say, when someone gives their life to Christ, they are born again. Because any person in Christ is a new creature, and old things have passed away. Yeah, okay? And again, if you understand God's purpose and priority of family, you understand Satan's attack on the family, right? So what I said, marriage, birth, adoption. I love adoption. We talk about adoption a lot. The beauty about adoption is that a couple weeks ago, we talked about how Jesus technically was adopted by Joseph, his earthly father, in order to be a part of this royal lineage. But the beauty of adoption is that even if there is not a quote-unquote blood connection, that everything that I have right to, if I adopt you, you now have right to. And so when we look at adoption, Romans chapter 8 says we did not receive that spirit of an orphan, but that of adoption. And so it means that he's saying, you might not originally been a part of the crew, but I love you so much, I'm going to give you all the rights of the same lineage as if that you were a Jewish person that was born of Abrahamic descent. He says, but now I've engrafted you in and you are adopted. And so we all can cry out, Abba, Father. Now we all can say, he's my daddy just as much as he's yours. And so we find that when Jesus teaches us to pray, he says, pray like this, our Father. If you notice God's priority of family, when the bond was broken between Adam and Eve and him, understand he went and established a new family. That's where Abraham came in. I'm going to make a new people, new family. And when you look at how he speaks to the children of Israel, he reveals himself differently than how he revealed himself any other time. And so we see this father begin to emerge in God because he is trying to reestablish the family. Right. If you understand the purpose and priority of family from God's perspective, you understand Satan's attack on the family. And so why is the family always attacked? Remember, evil did not show up. The serpent did not show up until there was a family, until there was Adam and Eve. The reason why Satan attacks the family is because if he can attack the family and destroy or weaken or either divide the family, he then can divide the system or break the system down that God has put in order. But because God already knew, he already put a certain glue in us called grace that will always make up in our weaknesses. See, so we wonder why does divorce rates increase? Why are there continued separations between children and parents? And why is there always this tension somewhere in family? Some of us know about that tension in family. The only thing we look for at holidays is the food. We don't want to see them people. Y'all like this. Y'all ain't woke up yet. And so we see all these attacks. The world would love to condemn us because of the divisions. I want to flip the script. Don't let the world condemn you if you experience the divisions, but let that cause you to cry out to God for restoration and confirmation that he is still with you. Y'all follow me? And so what we find is that God is always about ultimately restoring his family. So even if the earthly family is broken down, his first priority is this. I want you to know that you are still my child. No matter what happened on earth, if you cry out to me, you are still my child. You don't believe me when the Pharisees came up and they brought up the big issue of divorce. Jesus actually didn't even answer the question that they was asking because their heart was about looking earthly good. What Jesus focused on was, look, I love you and I want the best for you. That was his major focus. And so we miss it because we don't understand his priority of the family. We understand the law of the family, but we forget about the lawgiver of the family. Yeah. And so again, if you understand the purpose and priority of the family, you understand the attack of the family. And so as we look all throughout the Old Testament, we find God speaks to and through families. He releases his promise through family. He shows his providences through family. And when we get to the book of Esther, we have a family moment that a lot of people miss. Remember how people consider themselves family. The reason how people consider themselves family was if I am a child of Abraham or not. And it wasn't until the Hebrew people were in exile that they were considered Jews. That's when they began to be called. And what you find all throughout the Old Testament, even modern day, even World War II, you'll find that there's a constant attack on the Jewish people because this is a very clear image of God's family. Y'all tracking with me? I want to give you a little history and context. And so when we get to the book of Esther, it's the only book in the Bible that does not mention God. Everybody say, uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
But understand, look, it doesn't mention God, but it's one of the most historically accurate books. The reason why, because the author most likely was a Jewish person that wrote it from a Persian perspective. And from the Persian perspective, they could not ignore the fact that there had to be some type of divine intervention. So he wrote it in a historical perspective. But when we look at the fact that God is not mentioned, catch this. When we look at this, what makes it so unique is that the Jewish people were in exile, and the fact that God is not mentioned, it brings the reader immediately into the tension of knowing God but feeling disconnected from God. Have you ever been in that position? Knowing God but feeling disconnected from God? That moment when you pray but you're not sure if he heard you because you're not sure if you connected? Are y'all with me in here? Yeah. And so Esther expedites our emotional connection and our spiritual connection with the exilic experience that they were going through. And so we find that God is not mentioned, but yet he is seen all throughout it.
Yeah.
And so when we get to Esther, there's this man Haman who is just an evil guy. He's just mean. He's evil. He's an egomaniac. A lot of issues with him. He has beef with Mordecai. Who was Mordecai? Mordecai is Esther's older cousin. Mordecai actually adopted Esther, put her in a beauty contest, and she became queen. I expedited the story for you. And so we find, but we find Haman. He was he had so much ego that one time he walked through the courtyard and he saw Mordecai, and Mordecai didn't bow down to him. He got mad because Haman was part of the royal court. He got mad and said, "That Mordecai guy, I got to kill him." What? How you just go from I don't like you to I got to kill you? He's evil. That's what I said. And so we find in the book of Esther, we find Esther, an orphan girl that truly is a rags to riches story. King Xerxes, which is the king, he has a queen. He has a queen early in the book. She didn't respond right to him. So I don't even want you to be my queen no more. Get up out of here. And so now the queen spot is vacant.
Queen spot.
Right? And so then they decided to have the first reality TV show of The Bachelor with King Xerxes. And so they said, "Look, man, you don't even need her. What you do is, look, get a lot of young girls, and we send them through these beauty treatments." And then, it was about a 12-month process, and I don't want to go into all the details because it's not age appropriate as to all of the stuff that had to happen. But anyway, Queen Esther won the contest. And so now here it is. She's in exile. She won the contest, but they don't know that she's a Jewish girl. And Haman, with his evil self, does not like the Jews. So what he does, he goes to the king, and he says something like this in chapter 3. He says, "Look, there is a people." Notice he didn't say what the group of people was. There is a people that they're getting kind of strong, and if you don't check them, they're going to take over your kingdom. I think you should pass a law that we should annihilate all of them. Annihilate, that's a strong word. Completely wipe them off the face of the earth. I'm talking about genocide here. Completely just take them out. And so the king, he probably was drunk or something like that. He said, "All right, cool, Haman, I trust you. All right, go ahead with it." This is why if you ever serving somebody and they listen to whatever you say, you better make sure you walk in integrity, because if you don't, the enemy will use you. And so Haman, at this point, he's just like, "Yeah, I got him." And so he's excited about annihilating the Jews. Mordecai gets the news, and that's what we picked up our reading. He gets the news. He just got the news that one day that all of his family was going to be attacked and annihilated. How did he respond? He responded by crying. He responded by weeping. He put on sackcloth, which is all the Jewish religious customs of weeping, because God's standard has been broken. Remember I told you God might not be mentioned, but he's all in it. Y'all follow me?
Right. Yeah.
And so he's weeping. He can't go into the king's court. He stops at the gate and he's weeping. And this is Esther chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. And so at this point, Esther hears about it, and they say, Esther, your cousin Mordecai, he at the king's gate. He's looking all strange. Got sackcloth on, ashes. He crying. There's something going on. She said, okay. So she sends a messenger. They go check on Mordecai. Mordecai, I don't know why I always kiss you in the first. He says, Mordecai, what's wrong? Mordecai then tells the messengers, listen, there was a rule passed, a decree passed by the king that says he's going to kill all the Jewish people. And that's why I'm down here weeping. And so the messengers go back. Oh no, then he says to her, he says to Esther, he says, listen, you got to do something because you're in the king's court. You got to do something. And so then the messenger go back to Esther. Esther, this is what happened. There was a decree passed that was going to annihilate all the Jews. It's going to kill everybody. And Mordecai said, you got to do something about it because you're the queen. She says, I can't do nothing about it because the king ain't even talked to me in 30 days. We have some marriage hiccups. That's what it's not. So he ain't even called me in 30 days. We might have some marriage hiccups. And if I go to him, without him summoning me, without him calling me, I might die. And I'm telling you, that's the whole thing. The reason why the first queen got out there, he said, come here. She said, no. He says, all right, I got something for you. Get out. Right? And so she said, I'm going to mess up. I finally got to a place where I feel good about myself. I was an orphan. People looked over me, and now I'm accepted. I'm the queen, and everything is cool. But Mordecai said, you got to do something. She said, well, you go tell Mordecai that I can't do nothing. Mordecai, she said she can't do a thing. Mordecai said, don't you think that because you're in this palace, you're all so good and you think you're going to get away from what's about to happen? Because soon they're going to find out that you're a Jew too. And maybe you are in this position for such a time as this. You better do something. No, don't worry about it. If you don't do it, you're going to die. Your father's line ain't going to die. And guess what? There's going to be another deliverer to raise up. It's on you. Esther gets the message. She said, oh, okay. Tell everybody fast. Tell everybody fast for 3 days, night and day. Don't eat or drink. I don't care if you're dehydrated or malnourished. You better not put a thing in your mouth. Snack or some oxygen. That was good. And she said, me and my master, we're going to fast too. And so the idea here is that nowhere else in the Bible will you ever see fasting without prayer. That fasting is a denial of self to open ourselves up to hear God. And here's the misnomer or the miseducation about prayer. Oftentimes we continue to think that prayer is about us talking to God, but prayer is just as much about God talking to us. And so before she goes before the king, she says, I need to hear something. I need to get some strategy. And if we look at what happens, we see that prayer is a posture, and prayer is a humility before God. And prayer is not just about talking to him. It's about him talking to you. And so she says, I need to clear the clutter in my ears. I need to make some room. Because when you begin to fast, you begin to open yourself up to spend more consecrated and concentrated time with God. For some of us, the best prayers you can have is when you stop talking. Because oftentimes we'll get caught up saying things that don't make a difference. And God's trying to say something, but we won't listen. Then also, when we look at the power of prayer here, that prayer does not always miraculously change the situation. Sometimes prayer gives you strategy. And oftentimes we go to prayer to get a thing to stop versus to get strategy. I really want to help you here. Because a lot of us, we stop praying or don't believe in prayer because there wasn't a dove that came down out the sky and did something magnificent. Actually, prayer oftentimes just push you in position to understand what you need to do.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll change it. Because some of us asking for miracles, he says, no, I'm going to give you the method. Because if you get the method, I'll taught you how to fish.
Yeah.
It's good.
Y'all heard the old proverb before? If I give a man a fish, he'll eat today. But if I teach him how to fish, he'll be able to eat the rest of his life.
Yeah.
So understand that our interactions with God are always developmental for us to have some level of divine autonomy over ourselves. With wisdom, where he can move in us, divine autonomy, which means you can make a a well-informed decision for yourself. Having autonomy over yourself is the first time when you were in college and you recognize your parents not going to wake you up to make it to the 8 o'clock class, and you start setting your alarm early enough to get to that class. Autonomy is when you show up and you can actually rule yourself to some degree. Prayer helps us develop a Christ-centered autonomy. Understand, if you develop autonomy outside of Christ, you're being your own Lord and your own King. Autonomy developed in Christ means that you don't lean into your own understanding, but you trust Him and you acknowledge Him in all your ways, and He directs your path. Don't you know that the steps of the righteous are ordered? And so, over this War Room series, I want us to be able to hear God better. Hear Him better. And not just talk to her, hear Him better. So Esther, she goes, she fasts, and then the method comes about. She says, finally, I'm going to go before the king. What's cool about this moment is when Mordecai says, don't you think that you're so far off that you're going to just get away from what's happening? Remember, prayer helps us stay connected. What he's communicating to Esther is that I raised you in such a way that you'll always know who's your family. He hadn't asked her for anything yet. Who you pray for is who you're connected to. That just helps some people out. Because if you got somebody in your life that's not praying for you, they ain't really connected to you. If you got somebody in your life and you ain't really praying for them, you ain't really connected to them. Your prayer is when the reason why they say a family that prays together stays together. It's because the spiritual principle is that when you pray, there's a level of intimacy that is achieved and released that keeps you connected. What Mordecai communicated to Esther is that you're connected whether you want to be or not. When you're walking in the ways of God and God has a calling on your life, you can't choose your family, but you got to love them and pray for them. You don't believe me? Joseph, come here. Joseph was sold into slavery. We did a whole series on. He was sold into slavery, betrayed by his brothers. And when they came and they finally bowed at his feet, Joseph he could not deny the connection that he had with them. What you meant for my evil, God meant for my good. Yeah. He says no matter what has happened, we are still family. This is why some of us can't get prayers through, because we don't like our own family. You care about everybody else except for the people that got your last name and got the same DNA you got. Yeah. Your prayer helps you stay connected. The family within this church here, we can be connected to a degree. But if you don't know how to connect to your family, I'm not even saying that it's mutual. I'm saying you got the desire and that you pray for them. If you don't know how to stay connected to your earthly family, those same things that keep you from being connected with your earthly family, I'm not talking about a good relationship. I'm talking about you are aware of their needs. You pray for them. The same reason why you don't connect with them, eventually every church you go to, you're going to find that same thing and you're going to leave that church for the same reason. Wow. Did I go too deep too fast? Because remember, we're creatures of habit and creatures of pattern. Until you deal with the things that keep you disconnected from people versus saying these people don't like me, they don't like me because of this, that's fine. That might all be true. But you got to find some type of divine method within yourself to love the people that seem unlovable. Yeah. So Mordecai says you have to do something because we are connected. So he says, so she responds to the all right. That's what we're going to do. We're going to fast and we're going to pray. Esther chapter 5, she goes into the king. And she says, look, she says, I got something I need to discuss with you, but how about this? Let's set up a banquet. Let's have a whole dinner, right? And then I want you to invite Haman, and it's going to be a real cool thing. I'm going to talk to you over dinner. The king said, that's cool. Haman gets excited. Oh, snap, Queen Esther invited me to dinner. Queen Esther invited me to dinner. Sees Mordecai, he don't bow down. I don't like him. She don't even know that they're connected. Be careful who you don't like. You don't know who they're connected to. So she said, I'm going to kill Haman, not knowing that the one that got his destiny in her hand is his cousin. Boy, I'm telling you, this is so cool. And so Haman comes to the banquet, and they get the whole banquet laid out, the dinner. And I want to give you a basic principle. When you got to have a difficult conversation with somebody, food always helps. It helps. It helps. Take you to a public place, sit them down. Well, I'm telling you, when you break bread together, you're going beyond your human defense. Right? And so they might have a difficult conversation. Dinner is served, and so Esther rolls it out. Says, "Listen, there was a decree to pass that all the Jewish people were going to." She said, "No." She said, "There was a decree passed that all of my people would be destroyed." And at this point, we see that Esther had to reconcile something within herself because she had never told the king that she was Jewish. Man, didn't I just tell you, in order for you to stay connected with your spiritual folks, you got to reconcile something within yourself?
It's good.
And so before she can do anything for God, she has to reconcile something within herself to say, I am who I am. And even though my background does not look as pretty as my platform has been given to me to be able to help those that were connected with me in my background. Stop being ashamed of your heritage and your background, your parents, your cousins, your brothers, your sisters. So what? You might have an addict. So what? It might be a history of divorce. So what? They might be under the poverty line. So what? They might be arrogant, egotistical. They're still your family. And until you reconcile within yourself that I'm as much like them as I am anybody else, you will not be able to achieve the things of God.
Awesome.
God wants to restore the family, and part of restoring the family is you reconcile something within yourself. It's easy to get away, get to a platform, and never look back. People write movies about this all the time. Sweet Home Alabama. She went up to the big city, forgot about her little country beginning. Just to find out, this is where I'm supposed to be. If you reconcile within yourself, check this. If you reconcile within yourself, those things that you get from your family can be the platform or can be the boost for your platform once you get there.
Amen.
Understand your brokenness and your beginnings will always be a part of God's story. You don't believe Romans chapter 8, all things work together for the good for those who love God and called according to. God will use everything from your family and from your background to get you on a platform to stop some calamity in somebody's life.
Amen.
See, she didn't even know that this decree was going to be passed. And now that she knows the decree is passed, she recognized, I've been given this platform for such a time as this. And when you begin to pray together, you begin to stop calamity. And the way that Haman wanted to kill Mordecai, he ended up dying by that same thing. Yeah. So the king recognizes, says, oh man, all right, I almost missed it. But there's another issue, yes. Haman's decree has already been written. And one thing, once the king has signed the thing, he cannot take it back. So the problem is not over because Haman is dead. The problem continues. And how the problem continues is this. That now the decree is still written that on one day, everybody's going to attack the Jews to annihilate them. Prayer gives you method, but prayer also gives you empowerment. See, we still want God just to move everything. We still want God just to do it, just drop his divine hand and do it. No, prayer empowers you to embody wisdom and to defend for what's rightfully yours. The last thing that we said praying family stakes claim, I have to get my K. It stakes claim, right? It stakes claim to the promises of God. And what we find is, now that this decree has been written, now he has to write another decree because he can't reverse Haman's decree to its totality. So he writes another decree, and what we find in Esther chapter 8, the decree in verse 11, it says, the king's decree gave the Jews in every city authority to do what? Unite to defend their lives. They were allowed to kill, slaughter, and annihilate anyone, any nationality or province who might attack them on their children and wives and take the property of their enemies. The day chosen of this, the day chosen for this event throughout all the provinces of King Xerxes was March 7 of that year. What's interesting is when you get to Esther chapter 9, we find on March 7th, which is the same day that Haman had got the decree approved to annihilate all the Jews. Let's read Esther chapter 9 verse 1. It says, so on March 7th, the two decrees of the king were put into effect. I like this part of the story because now it's wartime. I understand the decree that was passed. It says you have the right to unite. The decree that, I I don't know if y'all
That's
heard. The decree that was passed is you have the right to unite. The word over this church this year is that God will take us beyond our human divisions, to take us beyond our human abilities. The decree that was released is that you have been empowered to unite and defend. I don't know about you, but I have some stuff that has to be defended, and I need my family, my spiritual family, and my physical family to unite with me. And so we find the decree has been passed. Esther chapter 9, verse 1. The two decrees are in effect. Now we have two things that are happening at once. Sounds like the classic battle of good and evil. Are y'all feeling in the moment yet? And so now we got the classic battle of good and evil. But what happens? It says the two decrees are put in effect. On that day, the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them. But quite the opposite happened. Oh my God. I love this. Because now look, everybody who tried to attack them, now quite the opposite happened. Family, when you pray with those that you're connected to, you stop calamity and you cause a divine reversal to happen. The curses and the diseases that come against you, they'll begin to work for your good. They won't be able to prosper. Isaiah says, no weapon formed against you shall what? Prosper. Doesn't mean that it will not be formed. It just means that it will not prosper. And so he says that both decrees were released. And so says the Jews in verse 2, Esther chapter 9, the Jews gathered in their cities throughout all the king's provinces to attack anyone who tried to harm them. But no one could make a stand against them, for everyone was afraid of them. Here it is, you have these people who are in exile. All of a sudden they stand up and they battle again. I'm telling you, no matter your situation, you always got the right and the ability to fight. No matter your situation, no matter what the doctor told you, no matter what your family told you, no matter what your friends told you, you always got the ability to stand and fight. And so we see the promise, though, that the promise that God, he has a promise over the Jewish people. And these people have to stake claim to that promise. Staking claim to your promise is not an easy thing. This means that you're saying, we are here and we're not moving. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 says this, be ye steadfast and immovable. Somebody say, stake claim. Stake claim. Understand the promises of God are yours. But sometimes you won't have them because you won't unite and defend what's rightfully yours. You can't defend the people until you understand the promise and the priority that God has over your life. And so this is why you can't find it in one scripture, but you find it all throughout scripture. A family that prays together stays together because there is calamity that comes against us, but there are promises that we have the right to claim.
Yeah.
What hurts me more than anything is to see a people that are children of the king living like peasants in his kingdom. You have peace and joy and grace that cannot be measured in this world's terms. But you got to stay claim. How do you stay claim? How did Esther and them stay claim? They denied themselves of physical food. They fasted. They sought divine wisdom to understand, God, how are we supposed to go about this? Oftentimes I ask God for miracles in certain areas of my life. And in those times, those are moments where I recognize God says, Chris, I'm not giving you the miracle. I'm giving you the method. It's just like everybody wants to lose weight, get out of debt, and do stuff like that. It's not always debt cancellation or a miracle pill that's going to help you. Sometimes it's a method. And God says, I'm going to give you wisdom. And that's going to take you to stay claim. The reason why some people don't believe in God anymore is because he didn't meet their expectations. But the problem was their expectations were twisted. Their expectations were off of miseducation, that he was a genie in the bottle and gave you whatever you wished. When I look at some of the stuff I prayed for, I'm glad he answered some of those prayers. Because those would have put me in worse situations. I'm glad I have a God who knows me better than I know myself. I encourage you to pray for your family. No matter what decree has been written against you. I love what it says in Colossians chapter 2. It says that he destroyed the writing on the law that claimed us to be guilty and told us that we were determined, that we were always always have to, that death was the end of the story. It says right here, he says, having wiped out, verse 14, having wiped out the handwriting of the requirements that was against us, which was contrary to us, and he has taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the cross, having disarmed principalities and powers. He made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them in the cross. And so what we see is that in order for our families to prosper, in order for our physical families to stay together, we have to stick together through the gospel. You cannot have family reconciliation. You cannot have any other reconciliation without the gospel of Jesus Christ. Chapter 9, verse 1 of Esther, remember, the 2 decrees were in effect. Family, there are 2 decrees that are battling over your life. One decree is of Satan. John 10:10. He has come to steal, kill, and destroy. There's another decree. But I have come to give life, and life more abundantly. There are 2 decrees over your life. And Jesus says, you can have life and life more abundantly. You can have the promises if you believe in who I am. Because whosoever believes in me shall not perish, but have everlasting life.
Thank you.
But if you deny me before men, I'm going to deny you before my Father. There are 2 decrees, and you have to stake claim for your salvation. You have to stake claim for the promises over your family. And until you do the work, faith without works is dead. You can keep praying, but until you're willing to walk in it, and nothing will change. We have to change our paradigm of what prayer is. Hallelujah. Prayer is listening and doing, not just talking and waiting.
Wow.
He says, I'm releasing divine methods for you to destroy generational curses in your family. I'm releasing divine methods for you to see the potential, the godly potential in your family. I'm releasing divine methods to stop the devourer from overcoming your children. But you got to do the work. I can stand here and preach Sunday after Sunday and go around this world preaching. But until I put the work in at home, and the curses can still attack my family. But before I fight for y'all, I fight for them. And that should be all our priorities. Don't you dare fight for this church before you fight for your family. Your prayers for this church should be secondary for your family. Because before there was a church,
It was a family.
there was a family to rule and subdue. The reason why the church is hard to stick together because it's hard for the families to stick together.
It's good.
We say family strategic here. We say family every Sunday to combat the plan of the enemy to divide us. We say family every Sunday to say we're going to love you the best way we can. Will that be perfect? No. But just like any other family, I want you to give me grace like I give you grace. But we're going to love each other and we're going to strive for that. And Jesus says, when you love one another like this, by this, the world will know. The world will know you're my disciples. I don't know about you, but I want Divine Unity Community Church to send a message to the world that we are the disciples of Jesus Christ. You can see it in our physical family. You can see it in our spiritual family. In Jesus' name, let us stand to our feet.